So welcoming you all my dear students for this session. So as we all we know, the subject is computing proficiency for cyber security. Already we know the competency, course outcome and everything. Even though I just recall the course competency that we are having a fundamentals of computing principles in various digital science applications since we are belongs to the digital science department. So the competency of our course is use fundamentals of computing principles in various digital science applications. So the first course outcome, which is the use of data and information in basic computing tasks. So what is data, what is information, the distinction between the data and information, and the basic computing tasks. So all those things will come under the first course outcome. So these are the session learning outcome. After end of the session, you must learn the differentiate between what is data and information, and you may get some examples of data and information. Then you may identify the key characteristics and importance of the data and information. And then you can classify whether what are all the types of data, otherwise what kind of informations are available. So all those things you may be learn at the end of this session. Okay, so hope you all understand the basics of data and everything. So this is the first one in the uh, course outcome 1. Okay, so use data and information in basic computing tasks. So first one, what is data? So generally we know what is data. For example, suppose when I come and ask you, give some data. For example, suppose I want to ask you data like your personal data. So what kind of data you given to me means like your name, your date of birth, register number, etc., etc. So generally this kind of data. Suppose I am asking you a contact details. Then what kind of data you given to me means like a mobile number, like a telephone number. Suppose I want to ask some communication details, which means a communication data from your side. So what kind of communication data you share to me means your mail ID or your phone number or etc., etc. So here that term data which refers to a raw, which means a unprocessed fact and figures without any context. Is it right? Suppose I'm asking you some personal detail. Okay, so already I mentioned it clearly in your personal detail what kind of data is a unprocessed fact and figures or a context. Okay, anyone. For example, it can be a number. For example, okay, you can give your date of birth. So the date of birth must consist of some numbers, then some characters, then we may get some symbols, some images or songs. So these are some raw fact. Okay, so when we use different kinds of raw facts with some unprocessed fact or a figure, okay, suppose it may be an image, suppose it may be a song. Okay, so all those things comes under a under one category. If it may be a raw, which is called a data. Okay, so here I have mentioned a small example. For example, 100. So 100 is a number. Okay, it's a figure. Then I'm giving a name, James. Okay, James is also one data. Then 86, 20, 25. Okay, it's a piece of data. Okay, 100. Then we can give you one name. Then we can give you a data. Okay, there are a text and a number. Okay, it all consists of a data, which means a raw information, which is unprocessed. So here we didn't process the data. Okay, so 100 is a number, James is a name, then one date. Okay, any one date like 8/6/2025. Say this is a fact. This is a fact. This fact we didn't unprocess. Okay, so that is called a data. Okay, we will come to the point later. Okay, what is processed and unprocessed? Here we didn't process the number like 100. We didn't process the name James. We didn't process the date which you mentioned like 8/6/2025. We didn't process. Okay, which means the unprocessed a raw kind of data, otherwise a fact or figure without any context. That is the main thing when we define the term data. Okay, then we'll go to the next one. So, okay, so information, it is entirely different from the context of data. Okay, for data, it refers to a raw and unprocessed work. But when we comes to the point of information, that has been a processed and a organized or a structured one. Can you understand that? Otherwise, can you feel the difference between the data and information now? The data, which is a raw one, and it is a unprocessed one. But when you compare with the information is a data that has been processed one. That is the main thing. There we are having unprocessed data. Here we are having a processed one, which means not only a processed, it is a organized one or a structured one. So that means we have to add a meaningful and a context one, which means we can easily take some decision with your data. Okay, previously we are having a data 100, that is one data, then James another one data, then we are having a date. Okay, here we don't have any meaning, otherwise based on this data we didn't process, which means the unprocessed data. Here we cannot take any decision making. But when we goes for information, definitely we'll take a decision. Where we'll take a decision? For example, James scored 92 in mathematics on 8/6/2025. Here James, so already we have mentioned in the previous slide, it's a name. Then 100, instead of 100 we are mentioning here 92. So 92 is a mark which is scored by James. Okay, in which subject? Mathematics. On 8/6/2025 the examination was held. Okay, the faculty corrected the paper and given to the student James. Okay, he scored a 92 mark. Now it is a meaningful one. It is a meaningful one. When you compare with the data is a raw fact and it is a unprocessed one. Okay, we cannot process that. Okay, it will not give any meaningful one. But when we use the same kind of data, which means a processed and organized or a structured manner, which is automatically we can take some decision with your own data. So the same data like James 100 and the date, it's given a meaningful one, that is called information. That is the difference between, otherwise that is the context between the data and information. Can you understand what is meaning by the data and information? So here the distinguish between the data and information table. There are some aspects when we compare the data and information. Okay, the meaning of data is raw fact or figures. The meaning of information is processed and meaningful one. So what kind of form the data available? It is an unorganized one and unprocessed one. But when we compare with the information must be a organized or a structured or contextualized one. The usefulness, that is not useful on its own. Whenever we are having a raw data, it is not useful one on its own. Okay, but when we are processed, otherwise when we are going to take some decision, that is a information. So here we are processing with some example. Then it is dependency, the nature of the data and information, then the understanding level. Okay, so this is the difference between what is data and information. So this is the simple one, how we are identifying data and information. Okay, so data, already I told you clearly, it is a raw fact. Maybe a number, maybe a word, maybe a symbol, maybe an image, maybe a sound, etc., etc., which means a raw fact. But when we use with your raw fact of data with some meaningful context, okay, both your raw facts merged with or combined with a meaningful context, that is become a information. Can you understand? You are having a data in your hand. Okay, when your data will be connect with a meaningful context, automatically your data will become a new information. That is called information, and that is the main difference between the data and information. Suppose you are having a document or a data in your hand. Okay, so it is a raw one. But when your data will become a information mean, so automatically your data may get some meaningful context. So this is called information. Can you understand the difference between the data and information? Hope you understand. Okay. So the next one, there are different types of data are available. Normally, we are having many types of data. In the context of programming language, we are having different types of data. Means there we are having some types like integer data, some floating point data, some character like this. But here we are defining, otherwise we are deriving data in different manner, like maybe a structured one or a semi-structured one or an unstructured one. There are three different types of data are available in the context of data and information. So number one, which is called structured data, and the another one is called semi-structured data, and the last one which is called, yes, structured data.